Just wait.
Welcome to the Infrastructure and Strategy Operations Committee meeting for the 20th this month. Before we get into it, Donna has a presentation on projects, is that right?
Yep.
All yours, Donna.
Coming.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I've requested this opportunity to show you a sample of what the team and I have been working on. So before I go into it, I had a bit of a vision, and the vision was that we're wanting to be able to show you as much information as we can on projects, not only from the total project budget versus total cost to date, so not only from a financial lens, which historically you've only ever received that to determine the percentile of completion each financial year, but also from the actual project physical delivery, which to me is just as critical, because just your financial results can skew what you feel is being delivered, because you're only getting one side of the coin, so to speak. So the team and I have been working on this for a number of months, and I really want to thank Cosmos, because he's put in a huge amount of time and energy working with me on this. And so my ultimate vision is today, this is a sample for you to give us some direction on, is it what you're looking for? Do you like the look? Do you like the feel? Going forward, I'd love it that we'll be able to have it on our website so that members of the public can view it on a quarterly basis. And then ultimately the final vision, so to speak, that I have is that we can actually have a GIS map with dots across the district, and if members of the public click into that, they can actually see the project that's being delivered here and when. So that's the ultimate goal. So I'll just talk you through this. So, and the disclaimer I've got at the moment is until that our new financial system is fully working and operational, the team and I are actually doing something that I normally don't like doing, is we're actually doing it manually in a spreadsheet, which is a huge risk. There's issues associated with that if someone forgets to update and what have you, but I've been waiting for a number of months to show you this, so I thought we'll just crack on. So this dashboard screen, it's like a donut screen, so to speak, with the separate four quadrants. So if I take you through the top, the very top one, this is all our capital projects under my team's portfolio. So it's not including the database project, it's not including IT, it's not including any compliance capital projects, it's purely my team's portfolio. Just want to clarify that because you'll start questioning figures and what have you. So for this financial year, our annual budget for delivery of projects is $41.3 million. The spend to date this year is 10.5. The forecasted expenditure, so the money we're expecting to spend by the end of the year, is just 30 million, and the carry forward values, because we're deferring some projects from a strategic lens to enable a reduction in rates, will be 11.3 million. Then it comes down to the pie or donut charts, where the top left quadrant, you can see where the forecast annual budget utilisation has been done. So right this minute, snapshot as of yesterday, we've spent 25% of the entire annual year's budget. We've also got on the donut an orange range from 70 to 80% completion, and then a red range 80 to 100%. And the reason I've put that up there is so that as the project managers and myself are working, looking them through this, if I can, could you please go back to the full? If I can see, for example, that we're hitting the 70 to 80% financial spend, but in the actual physical delivery, we're behind that, there will be some strong questions asked, because that's, you know, we're spending more money than what we're delivering. So that's the annual budget donut. Beside that to the right is the percentage project completion. So snapshot on time as of yesterday, we had originally planned at the beginning of the year to deliver 41%. we're currently at 36.5%. A number of those reasons are associated with the fact that we've chosen to defer delivery of some projects and to slow the pace down. But what I think from an accounting perspective is incredibly insightful is that we're delivering more than what we're spending at the moment. So I'm really happy with that. Now, a number of that could be because of the phases within the project life cycle we're sitting at. So we've got another split here showing you of the $41 million worth of projects, these are the areas and the percentage within the donut that each phase is sitting at. So we're doing a lot on scope and design, and that will explain why not as much budget has been spent versus completion, because you traditionally spend a lot less money in the scoping design phase than in the actual implementation phase. Then to the bottom right quadrant, that's showing you splitting up by the activity groups. So where is our most money being spent? And you can see 50% effectively is in water supply. So that's dashboard for all projects this year. Can you please go to the category A? Because category A is topical and hot on everyone's list. Let's take a minute to review. We've done a slightly different lens here. We've actually increased the information you get. So along the top bar, you've got the full budget for the life of the project's budgets. So this could be associated with projects that were started 2 years ago, last year and this year. You have the actual to date, which includes what we call the job to date, which all costs from when the project was started right up until, I think it was the 28th of February this year. And then you can also see the annual budget for the category A projects. It's 10.7 of the 64 million. And the job to date costs for this financial year only is 5 million. And that 5 million is inclusive in the 28. Again, we're forecasting to spend 10 million by the end of this financial year and carry forward 770,000. So again, you can clearly see that the annual budget, we've spent 47% of the budget utilisation, and we're at 38% completion. Now, you think, I see your eyes, Councillor Herbert, what's going on there? I can answer that in a second, but I'll just go to the next bit here. So again, down the bottom, you've got the project life cycle of where the projects are at. So the majority of them are in the design phase and scoping phase still. We're doing a number, we've already completed them and handing them over to operations, which is great. And then these are the activity groups within the category A projects. So yes, the financial results are skewed. So you go, what's going on? So if we look at Mount Cooey, please, Mount Cooey project. So that project's been on the boiler for a number of years, trying to get the consents over and above the line. And as you can see, 38.5% of that budget has been spent in the scoping consent phase, and we're only at 5% completion. So that project is skewing those financial results, as well as, can you please do the Bruce Community Facility? So the project that I'm looking after isn't helping with this as well because it's favourable financially, but we've actually done 18% completion within the design phase so far. So can we please go back to the whole category A projects, just the category A? So that's giving you an indication of the category A, which we can include in the risk and assurance committee meetings. If that's what everyone's wanting going forward, we can give you that snapshot in that meeting as well, if you're liking an umbrella approach. Then you can actually drill down even further. So, for example, I know the urban three waters is really topical and of interest to everybody. Can you please bring up the three waters? We're having to do it all manually at the moment. Thank you. So our commitment to council was that we would underspend by 15%. So you can see that at the moment we've spent 20% of the budget, but we're actually 41.5% through completion. You can also see where the projects are sitting, which phase they're in, and you can see how the split is up. So it's predominantly drinking water with expenses occurring. And then you can drill down project by project. So it's a bit to take in.
That's brilliant.
Thank you. But we'll be looking for information from you. Do you like the colours? Is it giving you the information you're looking for at a high level? So then we can talk to us on a project by project.
Will we be able to access it ourselves as council?
That's the key.
Going forward, once everyone's happy with what we're providing, the vision is that it will be on our website, so that members of the public can access it as well, if that's what the councillors choose to allow.
Is this your baby?
Yeah.
So what percentage of your time are you taking to do it?
Not much at all.
So you can hit a button and it's...
Oh, so Cosmos has done the actual working associated behind the scenes probably on it. But I mean, Cosmos is an analytical whiz, and I mean, they're both into statistics and gets us kind of excited. So yeah, it's not a huge amount of
So it's
time.
good utilisation of time and it's giving you the forward information as well. Did
If
you
you-
get the warning signs?
If you feel this is useful for you, absolutely. But for me, this is very useful
Yeah.
because I can monitor and see where that. So I can drill down and see. So which project is putting us at risk here? What are the issues? And get the information from the project manager.
Just
Councillor.
Yeah, look, I think it's fantastic, as Kane said. I suppose not the issue, but the thing that as this rolls out, it's just going to foster more questions. So we're going to have more questions. So I think, carrying on with what Councillor Bolwell said, if we've got that and we've got information to, it's going to a whole lot of questions, and I'm probably going to be able to answer my own questions if I've got access to the underlying information. It's sort of sometimes a little bit of information for people is dangerous, and I'm probably in that category. But so look, I think it's great, but as long as we can, kind of not be emailing you with pestering silly little questions that the answers in the further information that we could probably find out ourselves in time.
Yeah, we just think like, I'm really happy to answer initial questions till you learn where to go and questions. I suppose the questions are: will you want this externally visible for members of the public going forward, or you just want to keep it internal?
If I can, through Mr. Chairman, I think the first stage would be to probably produce some of these as in the reports as snapshots, and then we walk before we run, and then as the new data system gets up and running, we can see what the next the options are going forward.
Because we can't put this out yet until the Datascape project is completed.
So can I ask a question? Obviously, this is going to be done through the Datascope project, which the ozone, yeah.
No, I hope so.
You hope so. So if it is, that should mean that not only your projects, but anything should be able to be produced in this way. Any of our data within that program.
Theoretically, but I can't answer for the other activities.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean, there must be the opportunity, if that was what was required, if it can be done for.
I suppose the question will be, and like we only shared this with Sharon yesterday, just to make sure that she was happy and comfortable. It'll be whether, and I can't answer if Datascape can provide this because we're doing this amendment.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, but if it was going to be done through it, you'd almost think that. Anyway, that's a question for further down the track, I guess.
Councillor.
thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a question regarding the life cycle status on it. The disc there, does it represent the number of projects, or the sort of expected total time to carry out do these projects?
So there's two in there. We did have the percentages in here too, and we can leave them, but we just thought it was quite visually too much. But what it does is, so within the moment, the category A projects, and these are them all listed down here. So let's just say there's 10, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Right.
That there is for those 10 specific projects.
But then do the segments, do they represent just the, say, the project's completed? It might be one project completed, or is it more of a time?
That's representing within each stage of the project that out of 100%, out of the 10 projects, this percentage amount is in scoping,
All right, yeah.
this percentage is in implementation, and so on and so forth. We can add the percentages back in if you'd like that.
No, I don't think so. It's just knowing just what the specific represents.
Is it the number of projects at each stage, not the value of the projects at each stage?
Number of projects at each stage. And one question that Sharon asked yesterday, Christmas, can you bring up that the slide where it's got how we determine the project completion? Because I think this is good information for you as well. So in project management, you'll have a $1 million budget. And a high level estimation, the team and I, we sat down and we sort of worked out at a high level, what percentage would we normally spend on scoping? What percentage would we spend on design? What percentage on implementation and handover and so on and so forth? And we've come up with this, it's a high level benchmark. So 5% of any project's budget, we normally allocate 5% of that money for scoping. Most of the scoping work is done internally, but we do bring in early contractor involvement. We also bring in professional service providers as well at times, depending on the intricacy of the project. We allow 15% of the costs of the budget for design. We allow 5% for the tender, because again, that's predominantly done in-house. However, if there's any roading projects, we have to have a tender evaluation lead who is NZQA Level 6 Procurement Diploma qualified. Currently, no one in council has that qualification. We're working on that with the team. So we have to externally source that. Construction, of course, that's the physical delivery, 70%. And then the closeout is 5%. That's working with operations, making sure the operations manuals, making sure the as-built, everything else that's required is provided.
Any further questions for Donna? Thank you, Donna. That was very long.
So you would like these?
I think this is very useful, but I also, as I see that, depending down the track, this may be able to be used for other activities. So that's
Well done,
Thank you.
your whole team coming up with it, it's brilliant.
We'll go back to apologies, which I apologise for not asking for. Do we have any apologies?
Councillor Catherwood?
Councillor Catherwood and Councillor McCrosty for lateness. Is someone prepared to move that? Mayor Cadogan seconded. Councillor Herbert, all those in favour? Aye. Declarations and business? None. We will proceed to item number 1. And as they all are today, they're items for information. Operations update, transportation. James, would you like to come forward, please?
I'll take the report as read and taking this question.
Questions for James? Councillor Herbert.
Not a question, but a comment, James, that those routine trucks, I think they work fantastic. Just from what I see around, and there's quite a list of their kind of achievements for the time, and they seem to work really efficiently, actually.
It's been a change of contract style in the contract where we actually really, I think we talked about it in the change of contract, is we're taking ownership of those trucks. Where previously they were just a lump sum and we get a measure of how much performance they did. So now they're basically dedicated to trucks doing the work. And, we've basically put a third one on for doing bridge maintenance just recently as well, which is just focusing solely on bridges.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. The cost repairs of the flooding event, is that council only what it's cost us, 1.05?
No, that's with the NZTA.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just regarding the thunderstorm event February or so ago, that's the cost of remediation there, that can be covered. It was reasonably localised.
Yes, yes, it was reasonably localised. It was basically between Lawrence and Beaumont is the damage. And that will just be soaked up in the normal maintenance budget. If I can go back to Mr. Chair, back to James' question, Councillor Finch's question. The bar rate for the flood repair money is higher than normal far rate, so the cost will be at least two rates.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any further questions for James? If not, someone prepared to.
Happy to move.
Just trying to find the page. So on page 4, someone prepared to. Councillor Finch, seconded Councillor McCrosty. All those in favour? Aye. Carried on to page 7.
Yes, thank you.
Operations update. Various green space and waste. Various staff.
Unfortunately, Kelly's not well today, so for part of this, maybe James will step in.
Yeah, I'll take it as read and I'll attempt to answer any questions put forward. Otherwise, I'll try and find the information for you.
Questions for James? No?
So just through you, Mr. Chairman, we'll discuss the update on Mount Kerry when we get to the capital projects, rather than in this part of the agenda.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. On page 8, have we considered putting signs in the public toilets saying about no wet wipes to be flushed down the toilet, and at the dump stations to say that they need a decent rinse flush out after being used at the dump station sign?
I can't say whether it's been considered or not, but it's something we can look into. Certainly, dump stations might be a possibility. As far as the public toilets goes, yes, it's limited how much information you can get from people. On a time we had signs to discourage people from standing on the seats while they're using them.
Yes, but the wet wipes seem to cause quite a few issues.
It is, I believe it's only with some toilets that we have that issue with. So, yeah, it's a good suggestion and we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Got any further questions? If not, someone prepared to. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
No, that's all right. Just under your operations budget, I was just wondering, you've talked about removing skips and that from the rural parks and things. Do you want to have a discussion on that, or you've obviously got some thoughts going on in your head?
Well, not in my head. That was from the Parks and Reserves team. There has been discussion a number of years, normally come to Christmas time. We do supply rubber skips to the more popular Christmas time areas. Takamouth, Jets Bay, where there's normally an influx in not only the residents and the houses that are there, but also there's some campers as well. We have been doing proactive measures of dropping the cost by putting lids on the skips. They used to be just open skips, and we've got large amounts of rubbish in there, so putting lids on them, smaller holes, so I can only put a small bag of rubbish into the skip has decreased the cost. That would be a paper to council as to what
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we've got a transfer station review, and it's potentially something that should be looked at as part of that. Because at the moment, there's some of those little holiday areas that get no services, and in other areas, we're providing skips at no cost to the people in those areas, which isn't really consistent with user pays as waste costs go up. So it's certainly something that they won't want to lose, but it does need to be considered by council in certain terms of equity across the district.
So we look forward to that coming.
Councillor Finch.
On page 12, almost right at the bottom, it's just got a sentence saying 400 kilos per month, including glass and something, but it hasn't got anything in front of it. There's something missing.
So that's basically, it's general rubbish and it's tonnes, not kilos.
Right.
So it's 400 tonnes when you add the rest of it.
Of general rubbish.
General, yeah.
Okay, thank you. It just didn't make sense. I was like,
Any further questions for James? If not, someone prepared to move that we accept this operations update? Councillor Mackie, seconded. Councillor Finch, all those in favour?
aye.
Against? Carried. On to page 15. Operations update water. Linda, welcome.
Thank you. Just some updates to give you about my report since it was published. Firstly, page 17, the Stirling filter, the work that was done to refurbish that post the flood. We lifted the boil water notice last Thursday for that supply, and then unfortunately the weekend had a couple of lift pumps blow one after the other, which wasn't helpful, but the water is safe to drink, so that is the main thing. Second update is on the following page, so Richardson South, and you may recall at our last meeting we've been asked by the Rural Committee to put a boil water notice on and bypass treatment, which we took account of, given stock welfare was a concern. We've also put the treatment back into play and lifted boil water notice on that scheme last Friday. Page 19, those of you who are observant will notice that there's an incomplete sentence. So I'm going to run a bit of a prize so you can finish it off, but sorry about that. That was obviously my error in not identifying that. So the update around our Tamala Arawai annual reports was meant to say with 16 supplies, this is a significant piece of work to be completed, and this year, working with the vendor, the water outlook data recording system was used to shorten the required effort. In previous years, we've used casuals and contract labour to assist us meeting the reporting deadline. One of the uses for the data that all suppliers provide is to produce an annual report for the country, which is issued around October each year. And last year, Luther had a big red spot over it. Hopefully it won't look so big this year, but time will tell. Depends how others are doing. I think that are the only updates and changes that I need to make. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions.
Mayor Cadogan.
Thank you, Chair. Linda, on the first page, staffing, I know that we've got measures in place, but when you consider that there's now 5 in that group, saying 5 out of 60, I'm only guessing at 60, whatever Crown Survey does. There has to be a point where the austerity and the holding the cap, where 5 out of 60 seems quite a few to me. Have you got concerns that we're now down to we better start recruiting?
I think it's like anything. When we have an opportunity to review the structure, we are taking that opportunity. It doesn't mean we've chosen not to recruit. We do have some vacancies, as I mentioned this morning, and looking at better use of those people, or the type of people that we need to employ, who may be not as expensive as employing a water operator to do some other tasks.
Anecdotally, in the past, we have had issues with boots on ground. Say that. So at what point, I'm going, it's about 8 or 9%. At what point specifically, because there's the teachers list there, what point would you say that that's enough staff we've got to go re-recruit?
Oh, I think that's a constant consideration. Probably monthly we would review that. As I say, we've had some turnover in supervisors. You know, this supervisor lived out of the district. That seems to be a feature. If you live out of the district, your tenure seems to be, the turnover is more rapid. So looking for locals might be another solution, but finding suitably trained people will be the difficulty. But as I say, in terms of covering rosters and covering the work that's required at plants, I don't think that we're under pressure yet.
That's good.
But
To put it into context, Linda, through you, Mr. Chairman, how many of those 5 positions are operators? That might give some
2.
confidence. Yeah. Not all operators.
Okay, so then the next one, because that meeting we had on the Stone Hall, I know my brain's turned out like Biden, but it seemed a long time ago that we had that Sterling meeting. When did we promise them we're going to lift the board water notes that night?
We didn't make a promise.
When do we
we're
sort
not
of
clever. So we knew that we were expecting the physical work to be completed by the end of January. But as soon as we identified there was an additional concrete pour needed, so all of the product all arrived from overseas as expected and on time. There was an additional concrete pour that was needed. And then we had to wait for the manufacture of the laundry trench. And so the physical works were completed sort of mid-February, so a couple of weeks late.
So it's not, I just thought that, well,
It might
we're
seem
going
like
to get
forever if you boil
Japan
water.
from that,
Yeah.
but that's right, that's not too fair.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just on page 16, Linda, the Marflat trial that's going on, by my calculations, that's just about finished.
Yes,
We're up there in
that's
December.
February.
So it talks about a report there from the engineer. So when do we expect to see that report and who will get it?
I don't have a time frame for the report. He has been unwell, had a medical event, so hasn't returned from his leave yet. So I expect once we know he's back on deck, then we'll be asking for a date for that report.
So will we get it? Will the scheme committee get it, or will it just be staff that get it? Or
I think it should be shared. I don't see that
I hope so,
anything you
yes.
shouldn't see. Just to let you know, the carbon, I believe the carbon, the stuff that's in that black tube, that's been sent away. So he's provided us with where to send that, so that's getting analysed as well.
So the trial has finished and it's starting, right?
Yes, so we're going to send some of it, and we're going to send all of it.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Just one last question. Just with the Harriet wastewater treatment plant, this nitrogen thing seems to be an ongoing. Is it possible to spot check back up the line where it might be actually coming from? Is it completely mad, or is that doable? I mean, it just seems to be a common thing. And when you're testing where the water comes, you don't know where it's coming from. But if we can go back up the line,
We've had some interesting nitrogen readings from the plant that just don't seem to make sense. So we're going to be doing some resampling with that. We also met with you can sample up the line and try and measure where it is. The problem is it takes time to get those results back. So by the time you'd have to go and do like a survey of the town reticulation when you're doing the sampling to try and capture what's happening there. But that is definitely an option. We're also working with the treatment plant supplier because that is giving some. We think the results aren't correct, and we need to do the resampling, like I said, and then that will give us a bit more of a steer moving forward. But we are working with them in terms of making sure that the plant's performing as it's supposed to. Thank you.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. On page 20, the total non-compliant and infiltration that I'm always on about. So Clinton's exactly the same, Kaitangala's exactly the same, Lawrence, Milton, Balclutha and Waihola. They're all exactly the same. What is the answer? This has been ongoing for an extremely long time.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think the last meeting we put our timetable for when we were going to target towns, so across the year. Obviously, it's a time-consuming process. We can't be everywhere at one time. So we've got a plan that we're carrying out.
Thank you.
Right, any more questions? Councillor Volwela.
It just relating to the methamph or the they call it drugs and wastewater testing. It's been done in Balclutha. Do you know if there's any move to take it to test other townships?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I haven't got any information on that, but I would imagine that the population is maybe too small, considered too small, given they've probably got limited budget to undertake this testing as well.
We would just suggest the test, Councillor Volwela.
I won't get into trouble over that one. They don't need to do it in my area, of course.
Any further questions for Linda? If not, someone prepared that we accept this report. Councillor Volwela, seconded by Councillor McCroskey. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. On to page 26, is it? Compliance update report. And you're in, Linda.
I know. Happy to take the report as read and to take questions. I'll just point out for people that weren't at this morning's Risk and Assurance Committee that on page 30 there is a sentence there about the aluminium direction that was issued in March 23 has been complied with, and Tamara I have confirmed that. So no longer providing a weekly aluminium update to them, and our sampling requirements have been lowered.
Right. Mayor Cadogan.
Firstly, that's a significant milestone. So well done, thank you, team. Get that monkey off our back. And I will say that, like, I look at, holy heck, green pages. I'm looking at green pages, maybe not all green, but there is a pleasing increase in the number of compliance. And when I went over to the wastewater, the last column, the February column seemed to be improving. And I did that back to that report on page 61, went backwards, where we're starting to tick off a few of the plants. Is it by chance that the February lines are coming up a whole lot better, or is that the first ray of sunshine coming through that the plants are coming right, they're getting more commissioned in, and we're getting through the worst of it? Is it just a damnably good luck February because it was sunny? Or is
Sunshine
it
does help.
Yeah, but are the plants
Treat bugs.
Are the plants fundamentally performing better, fixed, commissioned, and we can start expecting to constantly see green screens?
That's always our aim, to achieve compliance. There are still some sticking points. There's a few parameters. I noticed disappointingly, Waihola had agreed for a 1 day discharging outside the time of consent timeframes, and that was 1 day for 55 minutes. And we'll get and we've got an infringement notice for that as well. So not only do we get that, they fine us.
But I'd have to acknowledge the overall, it is improving, we're getting green. One question that's been brought up as we go through this Water Done Well is that now, and yeah, they're not law, but the indications from the government a week or so ago on the change in standards is meaning that some councils have put new kit in that's redundant. You don't need the magnesium, nitrogen, something. Have we put stuff in that's now no longer needed?
Even with the new standards, we still have to comply with our consent requirements. So we still need, if we put it in for compliance reasons, that will still be needed until we have a change of consent. And some of our consents, have 20 odd years to run.
Through you.
Yeah, you know the question I'm asking.
Yeah.
part of the reason I ducked out of the risk and insurance meeting was there was a half-hour webinar on the new standards. And I specifically asked the question, how do the new standards relate to existing consents? And they're very clear, unless you go through the process and comply for a new consent, your existing consents continue to apply. So we would have to seriously look at the cost and the effort and the changes that might be required. But I would probably suggest the new regime is more stringent than most of our current consents.
Oh,
So that's part of the information we'll bring back to you when we're looking at the submission. But certainly for some of our discharges, there'll be a lot more stringent, even under those new standards, than our current consent. And we have to go through that consenting process for those new ones to be applied.
Right, Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on page 32, got the North Bruce water treatment plant. The bacterial rules there on the left-hand side, it was trucking along very nicely, sort of 98%, averaging 98% compliance, and then all of a sudden we hit the 17th of February, and drops away and sort of heading down towards the down to the 10s and 20s. Was there a reason able to be established for that?
I haven't seen that. I'll need to ask the team. I'll come back to you on that.
Any further questions for Linda? If not, someone prepared to move that we accept the report? Councillor Herbert, second Councillor Volweiler, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. On to page 52, is it?
Excellent.
Infrastructure and strategy delivery update. Welcome back, Donna.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, again. So I'll take the report as read. I do have a couple of updates for you before questions. Apologies for questions. So in regards to the speed, if we go to page 56, item 2.3, setting of speed limits. So since this report was written, we've now been notified that there's a group calling themselves Management versus Ministry, and they are questioning the type of tool that government is proposing to be used to determine setting the speeds. So with that understanding and knowledge, we're pretty confident that, let's put it this way, we've got the signs in storage, but until that sort of discussion comes to fruition and decisions are made, we think it's probably the best option to hold off putting any of the speed signs up until the decision is made from central government in case they make an alternative decision on what's currently on the market, so to speak. So there's that update there for you. So then, yep. Sorry. Yeah. So then, if we go to page under the capital projects. Thank you. Page 7. Page 72. Oh, that's a legend. Sorry. Be with us. Sorry. So it's the Mount Cooey project in regards to the transfer station and consents. So the team is still working closely with RRC in regards to getting the consent approved and over the line. But some good news is that we've since been advised that the proposed extended current cell life by putting landfill into the kidney-shaped area, that can proceed by our contractor, and that's going to extend the current useful life up to 6 months, is our understanding. Which then,
It's 12 months,
oh, sorry,
12 months extra.
yeah, sorry.
Yep.
18 months and, total, but it was 6 months and then 12. So what that does mean is that the work required to get the transfer station tendered and built, we're trying to mitigate the risk of having to transport outside of the district, and so it's highly probable that the transfer station will be built before any material needs to be.
No, the new cell.
Highly probable the new cell will be constructed before the material has to be transferred out of the district.
Mayor Cadogan.
Yeah, in light of the angst that was circulated in the public, and quite rightly, the $187,000 a month for carting, the possibility of 6 months, and to now find that is, while the risk is still there, the imminence has been alleviated. I think that's something that the public should be aware of. It had an impact on the organisation, and I think if we're getting, that's $1 million saved. The risk that came through is now being dealt to. Okay, it's still hovering, the potential, but as it is, I think that the public need to really know that the announcement of a month ago has been turned 180 degrees. So well done, thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of work by the team in the background once we've been given that visibility.
I think that, the feedback, the public fear blew up, quite rightly. But they should still take heart that, okay, these problems come along and then so do solutions. So, well done.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. On page 57, can you just explain to me the bridge inspections, 14 principal inspections and 67 general inspections? What's the difference to those, please?
So every 6 years, to ensure that we receive NZTA funding for bridge work, we're obligated in a 6-year cycle to do what we call principal inspection. So to make it easy, I'll call it a level 2 inspection. And that's, so your general inspections, that's basically standing, looking at the bridges and going, does it need new paintwork? Does it need the bridge jetting? Do we need to replace some nuts and bolts? That's like your maintenance bridge inspections. Your principal inspections, or your level 2s, are more structural inspections. So that's when we have to get a structural bridge engineer to actually physically go to the site. Sometimes they have to put scaffolding up, get in right in amongst that bridge and to really assess structurally how safe it is or isn't. For that.
Councillor Mackie.
Thanks, Donna. I'm through the chair. My thing is, you said you got some spare signs that are in storage, right?
Yes, we
Have you got some spare 50k signs?
I don't. So these are the speed limit ones associated with schools in particular. I can't comment on that.
What I'm coming at is, you're going to be a township called Waira, and around that town and past that school, there's no speed limit. It's open road. Now, us as a council, if we just can't go and put some 50k signs there and bring that speed limit down, the police can't police that if it's open road. If you've got some spare signs, I'm pretty sure I could find some parents and we'll go and drive the posts in and we'll put them up. Now, this is common sense, and we seem to have got into that bit much of a world where we cannot make actually common sense decisions.
So as in
Anyway, that's my...
So through you, the Chair, on page 57, within the paragraph associated with school speed limits, we actually have to get NZTA's director's approval to do this. It's outside of our control.
Right.
Councillor Herbert, followed by.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies, I'm a bit grumpy too. Just on page 65, Donna, on 6.6, about the reservoir constructions, the 3,000 cubic construction there at Marla Flat. And the sentence reads, it was necessary to relocate the reservoir to a lower area of the farmland, which will result in additional pipe work earthworks and labour expenses. Costs are still to be progressed, to be finalised, and multiple suppliers engaged to provide an update cost comparison. We decided where that reservoir was going in July 2023. The way, if I read that now, it looks like we've almost decided the last short term to shift it again. So it's a result of an additional work. Whereas we knew, when we decided as a committee that we were going with a 3,000 cubic tank, we knew where it was going to go. Therefore, I kind of don't accept those additional costs, because we knew right from the start, 20 months ago, where it was going, and we should have known the pipes that needed to be there. I suppose it goes back to, there's a number of times, and particularly I do, we ask, this is the project, what else, what haven't we got? What are we missing? What's going to be a late item? What's going to come through afterwards? Take the surprises out of it. So I just the way that's worded kind of grates me a little bit, because it reads to me that there's been a decision made after the reservoir's been decided on, when it was decided on the size of the reservoir and where it was going in July 2023. Thank you. I'm happy now.
No, I'm chipper. I'm more than chipper. Page 59, about 9 years ago, with regards to the fleet asset management, when we did that change around, it was said that there would be the opportunity for staff and councillors to have thrown a bid. It's there. To date, I've never seen any cards or anything. I don't know whether the councillors are on the Christmas card list or not. It's only going to improve the money the council gets back. The more the merrier. Are councillors in on that list?
Through you, absolutely. We haven't actually sold any for a long time. So when we were gearing up with our 3 water staff, we actually kept vehicles that were probably due for renewal. There's about 7 vehicles coming up for sale within the next month, and by all means, it'll be going to local car dealers, it'll be going to council staff, and we can definitely include councillors. There is a limit, though, that we can only sell a certain number privately per annum, per year, without becoming a licensed motor vehicle dealer. So we are limited as to how many we can actually sell, either to staff or councillors. But in previous years, we never got to the limit of 6.
No, it's just that I remember that councillors were in the pool, but I've never seen anything of it, so that's good.
Thank you, Joe. I've added that into the team. Thanks.
Any further questions? Councillor Wheeler, followed by Finch.
I've got a few things, so perhaps I'll let Councillor Finch go.
You go now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Page first.
For a start, on page 54, 1.5, got the water supply scheme strategy. I've brought it up a few times now about the Milton water treatment plant and the money that's proposed capital expenditure for that one there, and I see just a bit further over in this item as well, there's something about the removal of manganese from it, and that's a $1.4 million possible, it's a budget here, $1.4 million. And then in a later item, there's also increasing the supply, the take to 5,000 cubics per day from the water through that water treatment plant, and as well changing the filtration medium from $5 to $8 million expense as well. And I just wonder if Milton, well, I would like to see Milton included in that supply strategy as well, for several reasons. The Toko River, it's fairly constrained in the amount of water we can get out of that river. There was talk of even moving the water treatment plant to another location, to where the 2 rivers join, which would be an expensive exercise as well. And the water that would come out of that plant, the water that would go into that plant is still quite low quality and needs quite a bit of work to treat it. So, and if we did want to increase capacity beyond the 5,000 cubic metres per day to send further upstream to the industrial area as well, we probably wouldn't be able to get any more water through consent to get more water. So whereas if we can do something like we've done with the Greenfield scheme, and I don't know where we'd necessarily take it from, but whether Kaitanga come from, say, the Kaitanga plant or something like that, or a bore intake somewhere along the Cruithin River where we could get a better water source and an increased water supply. That's something I've been harping on about for a while now, but I've just mentioned that there since we've got that strategy in place.
I've taken a note of that, and we can definitely discuss that.
Yeah.
And sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, we also noted as part of that manganese and capacity work that once we get the initial scoping of that, we'll bring that back to council, and that can be the stage where we say, actually, this is what it's going to cost us to give us this extra capacity. It's likely to be a lot cheaper to provide that at that location than to build a new plant. Just to clarify, the 5,000 is what we can take at the current plant location. If we want enough for Melbourne, we would have to build a new treatment plant at the confluence of the two branches. So definitely, absolutely, before you can get close to that, that's where we need to do that strategy work. But I think a good trigger point would be to bring back that initial options assessment for the manganese and the capacity, and then we can have a discussion with council about the further strategic work at that stage.
Yeah, I'd just hate to see money being spent on doing some of those upgrades, spend $1 million to get the manganese out and discover that we've got other limitations as well. I'll carry on, since I said I had a few things, and Councillor Finch can wait patiently. For page 55, I just noticed the 1.7, the catchment protection policy, and it says increased forestry activities have negatively impacted the quality of source water. I would also add that it's probably the quantity of source water is more exotic forest gets grown in that area is at risk as well. On page 60, we've got 6.2, the contract, the hub pump station there. I'm just not sure it mentions street lights in that. Is that street lights at the pump station?
So within the project, there's some street, I don't know if you can remember where Te Paumara is. There's a street light that hasn't been in operation for a number of years on the highway. So there's that street light that will be put back in place, and a couple of street lights around in the facility as well.
Okay, right, thank you. Yeah. And that's included in the pump station budget over the page there.
Yes, that was all part of the infrastructure.
Okay.
And I can actually, if you'd like me to comment about the budget's 1.896 million, cost to date was 1.74. There'd been, with staff staff coming and going over the last few years, this project has gone through, that I'm aware of, 3 separate project managers. Unfortunately, a carry forward request hadn't been asked by a prior project manager to carry forward the 165,000 into this financial year, and therefore we don't have the available budget. And so the team are working up with plans or ways from a portfolio approach that we can utilise funds within the wastewater, urban wastewater portfolio. So how we have done with the Milton infrastructure project as an example, so that we can utilise funds there, but we haven't quite come up with a solution on that.
Thanks. That explains the red there. Just the Lawrence Stormwater contract awarded by the 17th of March. Any update on that one? Sorry, that's page 75, 8.6.
Page 75. Lawrence Stormwater. So, yes, I believe that I've actually viewed the memo and signed, and so it's just starting its way through the channels with that. My understanding. Onslow Street. So that will be awarded, like the formal letters will be going in if they have not already.
And the tender for the just 8.7, it says closing date for the tank farm reservoir. Just any update on that?
So the procurement of the tanks, that was completed and closed, and it has been awarded, where we're purchasing 95 30 cubic metre tanks. So we did a different approach this time. We've assessed all of the tank farm needs, and we went out to market for an open tender and procurement as a bulk purchase opportunity. So that has been awarded. So the tanks are ready and available, and we give the contractor, I think it's 4 to 6 weeks lead-in time of when we require the tanks. And that's potentially saved us tens of thousands of dollars.
Excellent. And no, I'll leave it at that. It's a short one.
Councillor Volwiller.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. On page 62, the Milton to Waihola pipeline, why are we relocating the chlorine booster shed? And was it put in the wrong place? And who's going to pay to relocate it?
So the chlorine booster shed was, the chlorine booster pump was decided after the original scoping of this project that had been done a number of years ago, that it was required because by the time the chlorine had got to Waihola, the chlorine levels could reduce to the that would be unsatisfactory. So that was an additional item. The property owner has requested that it gets moved because it wasn't in the agreed location.
So we are having to pay for that. Okay. And on page 65, North Bruce, we expect an additional expense of 30,000 for the piping work. Was that not in the original scope or something?
I'd actually have to come back to you on that one. I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
That's okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Oh, there's a heap. Councillor McAtamney.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I'm not quite sure whether to ask this because it could go a bit deep. But just alluding from what Bruce talked about, and I'm thinking through what's been proposed in local water done well. When a community has an idea of to explore a concept, will that still be able to be fed up through the council as a shareholder into the new entity? Is there a provision for that?
So my understanding, and Brian might be able to help me out here as well through you, Mr. Chairman, is that every year the shareholder councils, they produce a statement of intent that goes to or can comment on the statement of intent from the CCO, and they get a chance to say, actually, these are the priorities for our community and these are the things we want you to look at. The CCO board is supposed to take those on into account, but also feed them into their other business plans for the work that they're planning, right? Whether it's compliance work and a whole bunch of other things. So there's an input mechanism from all the shareholding councils to have input, but then it's the board of the CCO is then required to put that into their business plan and how they deliver on that, as well as meeting all the other requirements, regulatory, economic regulator, all those things as well. That's all got to go into the mix for the board's plan, but you could argue may well have some.
Yeah, no, the first step is to get it on our list and then it goes on their list.
Yeah, it will be reviewed
Annually.
Councillor McCrosty.
Just on page 67, the urgent pedestrian crossing removals. The bulbs and everything were taken out. Why was that urgent? Why didn't they do that in the original plan?
Through you, Chair, that was because of NCTA bringing forward their asphalting program.
Yeah, but would you not do that all in one hit? Because it was already taken out.
Through you, the Chair. So NCTA, originally we had an agreement with NCTA that they would wait until we'd completed this project. They had been waiting for a number of years and they had really tight time constraints as well. So we left the bulbs in place because unless you need to move them, it's just an added expense. And then when NCTA brought forward their program of delivery, we've worked really closely with them to get a whole lot of additional urgent work done that was only discovered over and above the original project. And so consequentially, we had to move those bulbs so that they could lay the asphalt and then we could place after.
So that'll be over and above the original contract price too.
As you can see within the financial position, where we've been using the Urban Three Waters portfolio for over expenditure, we've got that covered. It made logical sense to do a lot of the work that was planned in future years in the long-term plan to do it now while the contract was in place and before NCTA did their work, so that we didn't then seen as ripping up brand new asphalt.
Thank you for following up on those two.
Right, any further questions for Donna? If not, someone prepared to move that we accept this report, page 52. Mayor Cadogan, seconded Councillor Phelps. All those in favour? Aye. Yes. And that concludes this meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, right.
Chelsea. Open the door, could you? Like a sauna.
Apology, and that's again, Councillor Wood. And then we'll just
We
wait.
can give it.
Do you want to move and second that?
Yes, please, that would help.
I'll move.
Thank you. The seconder. Councillor McCroskey. Won't be long. Just have to wait for Jules to come back now. What are you trying to show?
Someone got a chocolate person, they're quite happy.
Bruce Graham. What's it for, Bruce?
For being the first to complete the awareness program, which we all should have been switched on to and be doing it regularly, and it wouldn't be a problem. If any of us need help,
Says you that hadn't done any.
Someone asked me a question.
Mine are all up to date.
obviously not fast enough.
Said anticipation ones.
He was just like 30 behind.
Yeah, I know. Did he tell you he's doing them at the library?
Is it good?
No. So did you have to help him?
No.
You got this. Sunny day, get out there.
So why did you have to go to the library to do them?
That's the original.
I see you down
Too quick.
You're not started yet.
Bruce seconded.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I see you're all
Right.
I see.
Call to order. So now today we have another presentation, which is really exciting to do to these lovely ladies here. So this is for the Balclutha Eyesight team for the bronze board of doing the Clutha Stars. Congratulations.
I would just like to say on behalf of the team that we really appreciate the investment made into Clutha Stars, giving us the chance to work together as a team away from the front counter to be upskilled and create new goals and KPIs. Thank you.
The other two lovely ladies, and this is for the Balclutha Community Library team, and they are also a bronze award for doing the Clutha Stars. Well done.
I agree with everything that Ange said, but I'd just like to add that the car processions were amazing and pure gold, and we learned a heap out of those. And we're still currently working on it. Something never stops, so we're still working through our processes, our process sessions, and creating our KPIs. So it's something that's always going to be ongoing. Our program for our community and for council.
Well done.
There is another presentation, Madam Chair, that we've missed.
No, we'll move on, I think. Now, thank you. You can get the chair going. Right, we've done the apologies. So moving on to report, accountability report from the Clutha Rec Centre Incorporated. You ladies would like to come forward. Welcome. Thank you very much.
We don't have microphones today, so if you could just speak up a wee bit so that online people can hear you, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, Mayor Cadogan, councillors and staff. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Amy Morrison, Vice Chair of the Cross Recreation Centre Committee, and you will already know Nolan Scott, our Facility Manager. The Cross Recreation Centre remains a premier facility for sport and recreation in the Clutha District and has also been the venue of choice for several large social gatherings, including funerals and weddings over the last year, demonstrating it is a well-utilised multi-purpose space. The centre had our first food truck night last Friday, which was a huge success with over 470 people attending. We have received lots of positive feedback, and what a way to showcase the facility to those that haven't used it for sport or recreation. There was lots of free play equipment and games set up for anyone to utilise, and it was a lot of fun all around. We're planning more events in the future to encourage the whole community to come along and utilise the Cross Recreation Centre. As you are aware, we are currently in the process of conducting a feasibility study looking at how the Cross Recreation Centre can best meet the needs of the community now and into the future, and potential opportunities to grow and expand. This is still early in the process and no plans have been decided, but it is providing us with useful information for the future capabilities of the facility and keeping up with the future of our community. Now more than ever, we are reviewing and monitoring our expenditure and trying to keep our costs down, and the funding the centre receives from council is vital to our budget. One of the biggest and most volatile costs is electricity. We are currently investigating solar power options and how we might be able to utilise this technology to reduce our electrical costs and therefore our operating expenditure. We continue to appreciate the support the council provides the Cross Recreation Centre in helping us to provide a well-maintained facility for our community to use. Are there any questions?
Questions, please, councillors? It's a great report. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, and thanks for your report. The business insurance is obviously growing quite rapidly, which is a bit of a concern. So my quick question is, when's your renewal period? And have you got any indication of is that kind of trajectory going to carry on, or has it been a bit of a one-off increase?
Our insurance renews from the 1st of July.
Right.
So we're just starting the process again. We managed to secure really good rates and we're hoping that it will stay the same, but how big is a piece of string at the moment? It's just, it's really hard to maintain, cost-effective rates by ensuring that the whole facility is covered appropriately.
So 1st of July, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? Mayor Cadogan.
I noted Tyrone Macarate gone back and went, and so the assumption is diploma. Is there any other dynamics that are happening down there in the way that's changing, especially with people having less money? Are you seeing any other dynamics that are changing?
Of the lounge use.
Of how you make your money.
We're open to suggestions. We're always looking for ways to try and bring in more income. But yeah, it's quite hard competing with.
So across the board usage of like the funerals and that's all dropped back because of diploma?
Well, we've never really heard those sorts of things before, so that was sort of an opportunity that came, like the hub, they found that diploma wasn't the right space for that kind of thing, so coming to us was quite new and exciting. So hopefully in the future that might be something that we might be able to do more of going forward. Yeah.
And that was what the food truck event was born out of, and the upcoming market day is how can we like sort of look at different avenues for income rather than relying solely on that the Tyrone Macarate income in that lounge area.
And I scudded you off to Ashley Bloomfield yesterday and he thought it was a great facility.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Ludeman.
This isn't a question, but it's, I guess, congratulations on the food truck event initiative last Friday night. When you say 400 people, I mean, I kind of didn't realise that many. It was really well supported, I have to say, and a good initiative that perhaps you can look at kind of following on with again, perhaps. But good to see that the community did support you.
Yes, we're very grateful for what the community did to support that, because we had no idea, we've never done it before. I know schools and that have done it on a smaller scale, but we're just trying to be something a bit different indoors for a food truck, something a bit different. And yeah, no, and even the vendors, we were lucky that they supported by coming along with no indication of how busy they would be.
It was busy.
Yeah, it was certainly very busy. It was great. It was a beautiful evening, which kind of helped, but probably not in the winter, but looking to the next summer, we'll look to that on a more regular basis without it getting stale. I guess that's the problem. You know, it's all a new button and it's all bright and shiny, but if it's a fine line between having too many and not enough. So it's how to keep the interest for the public. But I guess when it includes food, most of the people have to actually participate in that in some form. So it was good.
And so probably, Monique, and that one question, what are your bookings looking like for over the winter months with the sports? Is that looking?
Yes, yeah, we're certainly filling up. Like with netball, was of course is always our mainstay, and it's probably a bread and butter. But yeah, so there's more teams, so it's sort of how that fits. Of course, we're always looking to bring in other sports and how we can work on that. We're currently about to have the Cody Story Memorial Basketball. So whether that's kind of supports basketball in South Otago for their, you know, as a club and an organisation to try and help them get more people into basketball. So something like that might actually help people pick up a basketball and come and join into the other competitions that they have.
So I have a question on page 7 of your report. Court user charges increasing from 1st of January and considering increasing user rates for meeting spaces. By what amount did your user charges increase by 1st of January?
The court user charges increased by 15%.
And then looking at your meeting spaces, have you changed those or not?
Not yet, it's still in that consultation with the committee, but yeah, it won't be 15%, I imagine, to try to compete in today's world, but just how we can do the best. Yeah, we are very aware of putting costs up actually hinders families and children participating, but we try and work closely with like Sport Clutha, who have a sporting chance opportunity, and I currently spoke at the South Otago Netball AGM advising them about that, and also there's a initiative that Keely at Sport Clutha is running about passing on your sports equipment, shoes and stuff like that, so trying to get it out in the public that there is support for families that are struggling, because we do understand, but we need to cover our costs as well, so it's a fine line to balance all of that for the community.
That's wonderful. Any further questions? Comments? Appears not. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you
Good
for your
luck
time.
and congratulations. So we
Thank
have a
you.
recommendation back on page 3 that we receive the Rec Centre 2024-25 accountability report. Would somebody like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Mackie, and seconder, Councillor Payne. Any further discussion? There's not. Put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 2, page 9, and it's also for information. And this is Kelly's one. Who's taking this one? Jules. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, Kelly's points of note are at the front, but happy to take his report as read and take any questions back to him when he's feeling better.
I'd like to say Taylor Park with the digitisation, the arm, I've been there, seen it go up and down. This new planting either side of it stops people just drive in, and it's making a profit already. Isn't that funny? So I'd like to say it's really great to have it in and running and making a profit already. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Councillor Herbert.
So there's talk there about a meeting being arranged on page 3.3. A meeting arranged with Thames and us to relocate the fire track. I'm just wondering what obligation we have to be involved in that, since it's cost a substantial amount of money to reinstate back to the original, the removal of the cabins. Have we got? I'm just reading it. I'm thinking, well, kind of why?
Well, there's, I suppose, from a longer term perspective, if that is going to be used to its full potential, then that would have to be like relocated. But
well, it better be used to full potential because we shift the cabins because of it.
No, this is the ongoing discussions with Thames. So Kelly's reached out to them. He's met them on site, and anything else that comes out from this will be obviously discussed and come back to council. There was issues wider than the Thames running track that the cabins were moved for. But they're still in that location and they're still at the end of the camping ground. So you can't really have people using any area. The area they're using has been, council to date have decided it is not going to be a camping ground because you have to find the area for it. If you want to review that at some point in the future, then that will be part of these discussions.
Further questions? Yes, thank you, Meg.
Yeah, page 17, Taylor Park Camping Ground, how much is actually getting taken in for it?
So I'd have to confirm that.
If we can have the figures, I'd really like to have it.
So, and as it says at the bottom of that item, new data and reports should become available for council's consideration. So as we get monthly reports of what's coming in, it'll come back through council.
Yeah. So I just have a question. It was brought to my notice that there's been no hot water for well over a week now in Milton in the showers. Both gas bottles were empty at the same time. Is there nobody in charge of checking that now? Who's responsible and who would be responsible for getting them filled? And then they're both going to be filled and the pool closes on the 6th of April and those will be sitting there.
Sorry, just to clarify, are we talking about the pool, not the camping ground?
No, the pool.
Okay.
Order for the showers. So
I would have thought they would have raised that with the lifeguard and then that would have been resolved.
it's been raised with the lifeguards.
This is the first I've heard of it, so I would have thought the lifeguards would have followed up and got a bottle. Maybe not 2 bottles if we're going to be closing in 2 weeks' time.
So if that could be followed up, please, I appreciate that. Then any further
Yeah,
questions?
just one last comment. I'd like to congratulate AJ Nixon on becoming chair of the Youth Council and Claire Bouchard for being the deputy. Good Youth Council up to a good start, so onwards and upwards. Well done.
It is great. And the Youth Council this year is really enthusiastic. So good to have a wonderful bunch. Once again, we're very, very lucky. So no further questions of the report?
Just on that youth council, and I don't know if it's the right place to be saying it. So when the council drops back to 9 councillors, is the youth council going to drop back to 9?
That hasn't been discussed.
Or?
No, it was not.
Right.
This year when the
Probably wrong
sessions
time to
were
bring it up.
that will have to be discussed. I'll bring that up with Lily. Councillor Herbert.
Sorry, just flicking through the report again. It was, just on page 25, number 7, about community support and development, and this might not be, but since the LTP one, I've sort of lost track of the Kaka Point toilets. I don't seem to see anything. So I'm wondering what's happened to that project, because the way I remember it is they came along and they had a fair bit of info that they'd gathered, and we allowed them to carry on with their trajectory, and we would support them. But so I've lost touch of it. So I'm just wondering where that project's at.
As far as I'm aware, they're full steam ahead. Mike, can you give an update on that?
Oh, Mike's here.
I'm not really directly involved, but I just think it's more and they're developing the actual building that they want. We're trying to choose, the type of excellent, I think the company that they're looking to go with, what that looks like, whether they need consent, whether it comes pre-consented. But they're chugging along.
Okay, thank you. I just hadn't seen anything. I haven't read the paper, I've been too busy.
Councillor Martin.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the page 11 about collective pool usage, is that we're at the average users per day on the right-hand column there? Is that that'll be around 100 users per day? Is that where it's sitting at for the 24-25 season?
Yep, it's average users per day. So
we just doing
22 for the season.
For the season, yeah, that's going to be quite a substantial increase in income then for the pool at the tried down 50 cents at the last meeting. So we'll pay for a lot of chemical and toilet paper, I'd imagine. So that's 50 cents.
Any further discussions, questions of this report? All right, then somebody willing to move the recommendation back on page 9 that we receive the Communities and Facilities Update Report.
Happy to move.
20th March. Thank you, Councillor Herbert and Councillor Felt. Any further discussion? All right, put the motion. All those in favour? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And moving on to item number 3, page 38, and another item for information. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll take the item as read, but I guess I'll just note that, as you can see, on page...
All those pages.
Yeah, well, but, I'm in there twice. But on my version, it's page 39. There's quite a lot going on particularly around amenity facilities and across the district. You've got Kaka Point, a brand new playground basically being planned to go in there. Milton dog park plans are well advanced, and Project Bruce are looking to progress a pump track at Moore Park, hopefully. Tapanui, you've got a new basketball court going in there at the Bushy Hill Street Playground. Kaitangata, there's a riverside trail planned along the river there, and of course, there's lots happening down at Centennial Park as well. So there's quite a bit going on, and just note that I guess all of those groups involved in leading those projects, working with most of them, that they've raised a significant amount of external funding from a range of sources, just to get these projects up and running. So it's quite exciting. But happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Mike's report, please? That's easy.
Too easy.
Far too easy. So somebody willing to move the recommendation that we receive that, please?
I'm just going to go for discussion.
Oh, right. Sorry.
And I'm just going to give an update on the pump track at Centennial Park. Went down last Saturday. They had BMX guys and mountain bike guys. We tested it out. The chap that was building it was there. Was very excited about it. And by the time they tested it and spent a lot of time, there was only one little tweak. I haven't been down this week, but I guess it's ready to seal. I don't know whether you've been there, Mike.
Recently, no.
But anyway, very well. It's great. They're doing a great job. The South Roads team, I have to say, and very exciting. So while we were there, Silver Fern fans come along and want to help, perhaps sponsor some shade sales and stuff. So they could just say that the Centennial Park was absolutely a buzz last Saturday. Silver Fern fans had their staff day. There was heaps of bouncy castles. There were others. There was so much going on, but it was just great. So I just have to know that.
Very good, thank you for that.
While you're on that discussion there, councillor, I actually called in there on Sunday too to see what all the noise was about that we've been experiencing, and that's the first time I've been there, and park looked very smart, and then I will comment, I knew something had been up because your rubbish bin was chock-a-block and overflowing with rubbish
Would have to be
on Sunday, so.
It was
It's
so
been busy.
busy. It was just great to see. I couldn't believe it actually. And the plus, I have to say also, was Silver Fern Farms had used the big room in the pool for which showed that actually if we have a community event there is the option to rent that big community room in the pool, which has got all your facilities, and it just showed how we can really make that because it was. So no.
Thank you for that. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the questions, but I was dozing off. Mike, did the Kai Promo get a draft copy of the CCT policy, and was it acceptable, or they made comments and that on it?
Through the chair, yeah, they did have a meeting last week, it was, and they had some comments which I believe have been incorporated, and so and they've used the policy to.
So reasonably happy with it.
They were, I think so. Yeah, it was all good. A few minor tweaks, but.
Thank you.
Is that the end of the discussions now? Thank you, Mike. Somebody willing to move the recommendations then, please? Councillor Graham and John Herbert, second. Councillor Herbert. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you for that. Welcome, Debbie. Your report on page 40, which is an item for information once again.
It is. So good afternoon, everyone, again. It was great to have the team members here from the Clover Library and the eyesight. I'm very proud of the two teams achieving their bronze stars. Our branches are currently, our 4 library branches are currently undergoing their training as well, and they're due to finish in a few weeks, which has been, I'll let them tell you about that when you get to it, 'cause it's a very interesting experience. So this, please take this paper as read. It's very much the first update for the year, and it's business as usual. We've seen sizable increases in international visitors for our facilities. That's been right across the district, and going by a trip to Dunedin in the weekend, there's still plenty of grey nomads floating around, and lots of buses, lots of private tour buses. The girls at the eyesight are said in particular. Other than that, it's really business as usual, so happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Debbie, please? Everyone's very happy, obviously. Okay, can I just ask, what is Minecraft, please?
I'm probably not the right person to ask. Minecraft is extremely popular amongst particularly the primary schools or intermediate age type kids. We have to buy bucket loads of books on Minecraft, and it's Google. That's probably the best thing I can say to you. Yeah.
Yes, I know it's a game. Just wanted more
But
about it.
Yeah. It provides people with opportunities to create, which is one of the reasons why we support it.
Right.
So we do have loads and loads of Minecraft books, and it's not just about being on devices, because that's one of the things that we try and get a real balance of. On one hand, we might put a huge amount of time into helping people connect digitally in 100 different ways, but at the same time, particularly with children, we try to provide a lot of activities that connect them with learning that don't involve devices as well. So, you know, we just need to keep the kids to use things like fine motor skills and and not just know how to swipe left or right or whatever it is. So,
And I just had a wee question on page 51, 2.4, Milton information, and it's only got 2 customer comments and then nothing else after that. I wondered if there was a page that been missed.
we had a bit of a problem getting the upload of this. So what page was that, sorry?
51. And right down the bottom of it, Milton information, and it's just got 2 comments and nothing else.
And that's actually all we got. That's from, so the museum provides visit information service. Oh, well, the library does anyway, but the museum provides some, and we do get the museums to provide feedback via Ange that goes in our monthly stats, but we don't tend to get a lot of commentary from the Milton team.
Thank you.
You're pleased with the Main Street program?
Yes, Main Street progress is wonderful.
Yes, it's appreciated by everybody.
Thank you for that. So somebody to move the recommendation back on page 40, please. It's just for information. Councillor Volweiler and a seconder, Councillor McCrosty. Any further discussion, questions? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you for that. And on page 53, Olivia, welcome. Thank you. This is an item for information again. Training update.
Good okay, Tony.
Good up.
Just point out some of the key points from the report.
Just project your voice because we've only got.
Sure.
Thank you.
Project.
I'll
Councillor
point out
McIntyre's going to love this first item.
key points. So there's been some really positive project work happening in our team and cross collaboration with other teams and councils. So this week, myself and some of my team met with the rural water chairs and secretaries, and so we gave them an overview of our intentions to make some quite significant improvements in the forestry space, in particular how we receive forestry notifications and also how we monitor the effects of forestry on our infrastructure such as water pipes and roads. So they've given us some things to think about, and we'll be working towards the end of the financial year to have a policy and some steps for how we think we can consider forestry in the district. I'd also like to note that my team are also taking on other improvement projects such as supporting the infrastructure team and explaining and supporting them in the resource consent work for what they do with Otago Regional Council. And I'd like to point out that I think Clutha Stars has been instrumental in really supporting us to have this cross collaboration with teams as well as operating semi-autonomously. Also very proud of my team. We're 100% for our stats. And over 2 years ago, we were in quite a dire situation in terms of our percentages for how many we were getting. And so I don't take it lightly. We're heading towards our second year of having 100% for our resource consents, which will be a massive achievement. And we're manifesting that we'll get that again. But I know I say the same thing each time, oh, we're at 100%, but it is actually a big achievement for our team, and it wasn't always like this. So just big kudos to my team about that. I've also, and I know Christina mentions it in the her risk and assurance space, been collaborating with Christina a lot and working alongside Jules, and we have a Tautukunga compliance working group we've set up for senior members to really look at how our iwi engagement can be done better, and we're working on some policies and resources for the wider staff as well. So that work is ongoing, and we've also had some really positive feedback from Okaha in particular about the direction that we're going in as a council. So that's really positive too. You guys may have seen recently that in the wind farm space, that the Southland wind farm has actually just been declined as part of the fast track process. So we actually do in our district have also Mahirarangi and the Kaihiku wind farm, which are on the fast track list. So it will be interesting to see what will happen in that space with the latest from the Southland wind farm. on that note as well, I'm looking to see about cost recovery provisions for councils, because it's not going through a standard consenting track. It can be a little more difficult to cost recover. So I'm working with ORC to see the best way to be able to nail that, so we can actually, we're only a little council, so we have to look at these things sometimes. And I'd also like to note, just in regards to the Milton project for the library, so my team, once it's submitted, we are processing the notice of requirement for the Milton project. And I just want to be really clear that we've got a situation here where the applicant is Clutha District Council and the consent authority is Clutha District Council. So my team will be very carefully considering the application and very ethically, meaning that even if there is pressure for the project to move for different reasons, my team have to follow their process, and it will also be likely signed off by an independent commissioner, so it won't be me signing it off, because it could be perceived as a conflict. And so I just want to be clear on that also. Aside from that, I will take the report as read. Any?
Councillor Mackie.
You one on the forestry there. Are you working with Fens? I was talking to my boss in Fens the other day, and with these carbon farms and what have you, none of them are wanting to comply to the tracking and building of dams for firefighting purposes going forward, because these issues could arise, and basically the only way you're going to be able to fight these fires is aerial. And if you can't get access, it turns into a bit of a problem. So who's enforcing some rules on them so that going forward we actually have the ability to put these fires out better?
Through Madam Chair, that's a good question you ask. And to be honest, if it's not within the either the NES CF, so the National Environmental Standard for Commercial Forestry, or if it's not in a district plan, it can actually be really difficult for us to enforce. And it's probably, I'm thinking I can look into it more, but it'll probably be more of a Fens matter to enforce under whatever legislation they've got, rather than anything that we can actually enforce. So I think it's a valid question that you raise, but I'm not sure if it's actually under the remit of this council.
Yeah, but Fens, I don't think Fens has much power either, because they don't even try to cost recover fires that are started without having a permit. So.
And through the chair, you may be correct that I don't know exactly what their powers are, but if it doesn't sit with us, it's really difficult for us to enforce it. And so it may be that it's more of a guideline that Fens has, but it's not actually enforceable, and that's probably a wider issue than what we've got, even though your point is valid. And we will, to your point there, we will be going through a district plan change, and as part of a rolling review. It is going to be quite a slow rolling review, as we don't have a huge amount of money. So when we get to that point, we can look at it, but there's still no guarantees, and it's still probably quite a long time away before we could really look at that sort of matter, and even consider if we've got the powers to include it in our district plan as well.
So do you have so you still have rules on paper roads that are on all of these farms. You could have a rule where no paper road is allowed to have trees planted on it, because that land's already there.
I think more about that one. It's probably a little too detailed for me to come back with a firm answer on it. It's something we can look to at the district plan stage. But for the moment, even any forestry matters, the NES often supersedes what's in the district plan anyway, which is the challenge.
Just through you, Madam Chair, as well, we do have policies that relate to paper roads, and we effectively say if it's a paper road, it's as part of your farm, your property, you can use it as part of that property. If it's available for access, then other people can use it for access. But we don't tend to. I mean, I could see farmers asking us to fence them off if we told them what they could and couldn't do with the paper roads. But we do have policies that cover some of those aspects.
Well, when I was doing my ETS and looking at putting my forestry into the ETS scheme, any trees that were actually on a paper road or that had a paper road that went through the block was if it was under a hectare at the end of the day, because the paper road went through it and cut it off, you couldn't claim it. So those paper roads are effectively the trees that are on on those paper roads are not counted in the ETS.
No, that's true, but it's not something you would want to have any different rules to that than the property owner using it for whatever they're doing. You wouldn't want to not plant them out or anything like that. So there's lots of paper roads over lots of private property around the district. So
Yeah, I know, I've got a lot
it'd be pretty
of
difficult to manage it. They're all over the place. So.
That's a great point about the firefighting, and so Olivia will look into that, especially when it comes to the district plan. Thank you for that question. That's really good. Further questions of Olivia's report, please? I just have one about the Mahinarangi wind farm and the other one. So are they looking to make them substantially bigger, do you think?
So the Mahinarangi, that will be a variation where they're looking to add some more turbines. Kahiku will be a completely new wind farm. That's about a triangle between Owaka, Clinton and Balclutha. So that would be quite,
Roughly how many turbines in that one?
Oh, I'd have to look back at it. It's a quite big,
right,
from recollection. Okay. So that will go through. They're on the list to go through the fast track process.
Yes, yes. Any councillor Makatamani?
Can I just ask a question? Historically, what has been the council's policy when those other two wind farms have been established? Have we been a neutral observer to it all, or are we in principle supportive of wind farms?
Through the chairs, that would have been before my time. However, we would have to be really careful as a council because the consents for those wind farms would have gone through a standard process that would have been processed by our council. And so I could say for the regulatory team at least wouldn't be able to have a position on it because we have to process the application on its merits.
But in the new fast track though, we won't be, will we?
There'll be a lot less involvement.
So we could take a position.
That wouldn't through the chair. It wouldn't be up for me to make the call. It'd probably be up to the CE about it.
Definitely. Thank you. Yes, councillor Volweiler.
Just to make the comment that the previous two wind farms that have been built in this district, that there were elected members on the hearings panels for those.
And we had to remain ambivalent,
Yeah.
obviously, so you never had a position.
Thank you for that. Any further questions, discussions? No? Then somebody willing to move the recommendation back on page 53, councillor Kennedy, and seconded councillor Crane. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olivia. And moving on to page 59 and building and regulatory update report. Welcome.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. This last period's been a real mixed bag for us. There's been some good records smashed. We've had a record number of limbs for February at 53 limbs, and that's like double what we normally deal with. And there was some quite complex limbs amongst them as well. Another thing that I think is a record is we've got 99% of known dogs registered, but yet we're still finding unregistered dogs. So that's a really good thing there. Like I say, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. It's been an interesting last probably 4 to 6 weeks with a number of staff away. We currently have 3 staff away on sick leave, reasonably long term, and it keeps getting extended out, so that makes it hard. We've got 2 away from building and 1 away from the animal control. We also have the team leader for animal control as well on 3 weeks leave. So Michelle's doing an awesome job holding the fort by herself, so that's really, really good. With the building control, we're being down 2. We've had to contract out a number of consents to keep our heads above water. The beauty about us going to objective build is the contracting out of the consents has been really easy. What used to take you like 3 to 4 hours to prepare a consent to go out now takes you about 3 minutes. So that's a huge advantage. This probably wouldn't be all possible if it wasn't for the good support from the admin team as well. They're really providing some good backup and support for the whole team. We've had some good compliments. It's really, really good to see phone calls and that coming in, praising people up for their good work. We've also had some complaints. The food licensing, 2 years ago, we had a large increase of a 30% increase just to recover costs. And due to a lot of verifications only been done every 18 months, it's only really starting to hit home now. And having said that, though, we've only had 3 complaints, but they've been pretty hard ones to work through. So that's, one that's going to take a wee bit of sorting out. It's a bit frustrating when you see a large increase of 30%, and the following year you only have an increase of about 3.4%. And this year we proposed fees are only, I think, about 2.3%. So we're really trying hard to keep that under control. We believe we have the best possible contract rate for them. Any others I've looked at would easily cost another $200 per premises. So I think we've really got that under control. With building controls, might be jumping around a bit today. Like I said, it's been a mixed bag this period. It's really good to see the February figures starting to come back to normality. I think it was about $6 million worth of work issued for February, which is really good. Down slightly, I think it was for February. Consent numbers are actually up, but value of works was down slightly, but it's really good to see that return happening. So, I guess any questions?
Questions of Malcolm's report from anyone, please? No, getting off lightly. Okay, then somebody willing to remove the recommendation on page 59 that we receive the report, please. Councillor Herbert and seconded by Councillor Graham. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That is carried. Thank you. And that brings this meeting to an end. Thank you very much.
Just change the game.
Right. Welcome to the Corporate and Policy Committee meeting. Corporate apologies. We've got Kath, someone move?
Yep.
Councillor Kennedy, Mayor Cadogan. Any declarations of interest? Any urgent business? No public forum. First up is the presentation from the Kai Housing project. It's been cancelled. Okay. Okay, fine. So we go to agenda 1 on page 4, the Clutha District Heritage Toolbox. Yay. Welcome, and it's yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Take the paper as read and invite any questions from councillors through Madam Chair.
Any questions, please? I'll also make a comment. I think this is really good paper, and I can see when I had 2 goes at it, and the first time I thought, oh yeah, and when I went back again, I actually can really see the benefit of us having this. So it was very worthwhile. Thank you. One comment would be that this is the basis for the development of the web-based heritage toolbox, and we're endorsing it here as corporate and policy. But at some stage, does this actually go to council for their approval? I'm just, because we don't have the powers, I'm questioning whether we can make a decision on this or whether we can recommend to council.
I don't know, you want to take this? Yep.
Was that, we just discussed this and removed it already last year at the long-term planning that we proceed and produce this. So we'll need to go back to council.
Well, probably the actual what we're producing will have to go back to, I believe, the council to be approved because we don't have the powers. So, Peter.
Well, Madam Chair, that's your prerogative. I would suggest, though, you might want to consider the fact that it's actually technical content. It's really, and that was its design, was to collate existing material, not create new material.
Yeah.
So, but if you felt that it was better to go to council, that would be a call you could make. But I would suggest that you do have the authority to do so.
I'm not sure that I probably would feel more comfortable in that the Corporate and Policy Committee recommends to council that they approve or endorse. That would be my way of thinking on a delegation.
That's certainly your.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, Ellie. I think the suggestion should be that we accept the report and we recommend to council whatever the recommendation is.
Yeah, that's just, Councillor Bolwheeler.
I sort of take the opposite point of view. I think this is sort of within the ambit of the Corporate and Policy Committee. It isn't a policy in itself, but it's a document which we make available for the public. But I wouldn't have thought it needed to go to council, but however, if that's the will of the committee, that's fine.
Okay. Councillor Kennedy, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Probably going to show a bit of ignorance here, but I'm still going to ask the question. Heritage has covered buildings.
Is that the question?
No. What about heritage trees that we seem to have around different communities? Where do they lie?
Through the chair. Yeah, so this piece of work, toolbox, is specifically related really to heritage buildings and sites, I guess, cultural significance. So there are other, as noted near the front of the report, we have a link to the already existing the library service, which is got information about other heritage stuff across the district. So this is primarily focused on buildings really, and development of maintenance, etc.
Just through you, Madam Chair, in terms of trees, there is a significant tree.
They also can be put in sites.
Yeah, but when the district plan review comes up, you can add or remove trees from the district plan schedule.
They are in there.
It can be more. There's not many in there at the moment.
Not anymore. Thank you.
So is this basically a live document which would be updated
Yes,
as
that's-
required?
Yeah, for the chair, that is what is intended.
Yeah.
That it is, Mike's report provides a basis for us to start the heritage toolbox process, but that there would be information that would be added when they come live or when we have the capacity to update.
Right, yeah.
Just further, I guess, to the trees, Madam Chair, I guess, as you say, there is this suggesting that you have a link to what the library service, but you can also have just a simple link
To the trees.
schedule or
Yeah.
anything else
Yeah.
along that lines that you want. So that they all interlink.
Councillor Graham?
Through you, Madam Chair, I sort of got a wee bit lost in this, but who can actually put a building on a heritage, like something a heritage building? Who puts it on the list? Can anybody or?
Madam Chair, through the chair, that's correct. Anyone can apply to. Yeah. Through.
So I could apply to have your house put on the list, type.
You can.
And would you have any rights to say, no, clear off, I'm happy with it where it is?
Well, it's up to Heritage New Zealand whether they add it to the list or not. I guess part of that would be talking to the landowners.
So so the property owner, what rights does he have when it comes to if someone wants to put, say if someone wants to put my house on the list, and I'm not really interested because when I do that, then they say, well, you really should have it painted this colour and you should do this, you should do this. And hey, I'm only a pensioner and I can't really afford to make it a comfortable house up to your standards, so clear off. Can I say that?
It's a good question, and I'll go back to them and confirm that. Quite good to confirm through this.
I only ask them for free.
If you've got one of those.
Nick Cadogan.
Isn't any building like prior to 1913, isn't any building automatically on? There's a date, 1900. So it's automatic whether you like it or not, because I would have thought if you bought the house here, you took it on whether you like it or not.
No, it should be on the.
I bought a few old houses and you just wear it.
Councillor Volwiller.
No, it's not automatic that a building goes on the New Zealand Historic Places Trust. What they call Category 1 and Category 2 list. It has to be applied. The Historic Places Trust has to do due diligence on it to see if they actually want it on their list. It's the 1900 thing is more about the archaeological sites. So disturbing pre-1900 sites.
Councillor Martin.
Through you, Madam Chair, Mike, in the district plan, we've got, include the district plan, what is there? Is there 36 registered sites? Is it more than that? So you see a number of those sites are already identified in our district plan, and it needs updated. That's part of the toolbox process that we brought up the long-term plan, because some of them have actually already been removed, knocked down, they're non-existent. So that's part of the process, is to have the toolbox and then update our district plan.
I mean, I agree. Once I really got my head around it, I can actually see the benefits.
And a lot of the references in here you'll see, and of course Mike's sort of utilised Lawrence as a bit of a expo, but the Clutha district itself has a lot of historical sites down here around Clutha. It's just amazing when you actually go online and have a look what's registered in that district plan. So the whole objective is not just the toolbox, but it's the preservation of not just what's in Lawrence, but throughout the district. So good work, Mike. Good mate.
Any further questions, discussion?
Can I move this on with that by moving that we received the report and that we recommend to council, so whatever the recommendation to be council. Yeah, that recommend that council adopts the report, leave the decision to council. So, yes. You can see where I'm coming to. So we received the report and we recommend
To council, instead of endorsing, we recommend it basically to council that they approve it. Endorse it or, yeah.
So I want that.
Seconder for that.
I'm happy to second that.
Councillor Finch actually seconded. So, any further questions? So I'll put those two motions to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. So now item number 2, the strategic planning and policy report, Peter. Okay. Yours.
Madam Chair. I'll take the report as read. Yes, for you, take questions, Madam Chair.
Questions for Peter, please. I guess mine's on the reimbursement of fees and charges, but that'll come to the next meeting, and it may be able to be discussed further in the agenda when we actually see how it's trending as well.
So we'll, yes.
We'll just park that one till then.
Yeah.
Perhaps for discussion. Any other questions for Peter? Questions?
I'm just happy to move the recommendation.
Okay, seconder for that, please. Councillor Herbert. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Item number 3. The review of council policies.
Through you. I'll take the report as read, but just would like to highlight this is an ongoing process, as councillors have been updated over the last few months of going through our policy suite. At the last meeting, you might recall, we looked at the immediate work we're doing. This is looking at the next tranche of looking at a review of the policies, the council policy in this case, and at your next meeting, propose to bring forward the organisational policies, which are more internal. As you can see, there's a substantial list there, and you can see also that there's a number that are overdue for review. You can ask questions about that if you would like to. So, for you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Dover?
Thank you, Chair. Peter, on the list, there's no vehicles on beaches.
That's a bylaw. Which is a body's work to review as well.
Yeah, no, fair call.
Yes. Any other questions, Councillor Bolwera?
I guess my question is, do we need a policy on a nuclear weapons free zone?
District.
Well, you might, the way Trump's going.
So through you, Madam Chair, a paper's been prepared. It was to come to council last meeting, but the agenda was too full. So the call was to put it to the next meeting on the 3rd of April. One of the recommendations is not to happen.
I thought I might just save time now rather.
You're building one in your backyard.
So we should be worried.
Needed to deter some.
So I guess, question from me, I mean, we do have a lot of overdue policies, and I know we've probably had time constraints,
But somewhere along the way, do we need a better system whereas X amount automatically come to perhaps each meeting or quarterly we have policy review or something so that we actually are keeping abreast of it? That's just a comment.
So through you, Madam Chair, totally agree. And that's the work that we're trying to achieve here. At the end of this process, effectively, there will be a list of when they're due and actually a program. And programmed into your committees, the suggestion in this policy attachment is that the updates or reviews will go to the respective committees that relate. Of course, this committee has the oversight role, which is what you're talking to. I might add things of a lot of the policies are fit for purpose still.
Yes.
And they were risk assessed by a couple of years ago as sort of being low priority issues, and other priorities obviously took in place. But having said that, that's not the reason to continue that on that basis. The second thing is, I might just make the point, things have changed a lot in the last 2 years. There's a lot of new demands, and in reviewing a policy, it might be a case of just saying, is it still current?
Yes.
Or is it still needed? And that's the point of the review. Or it might be a case of saying, this is a much more important thing now. We really need to look at it in much more detail. And it has more significance.
And sometimes it's just almost quarterly or whatever to tick the box and see where we're at, perhaps, so that they just don't fall behind. And I accept workload, but they are important because that's how we should be operating.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, I might just add, in my mind's eye, something not dissimilar to the risk and assurance report where you've got A category projects. Of course, that's what you need ticks as to where it's going.
I think that would be really useful. Thanks for that. Any further questions, Councillor Martin?
Through you, Madam Chair. Peter, I know, I appreciate you used the risk metrics, but see here you've got a policy on dangerous and unsanitary buildings. I know our local community, it's been a hot topic amongst the community board. It's one that hasn't been conveyed back to you as a policy. But there's some older buildings that are quite dangerous and actually not appealing in a historic precedent. And council got no way of actually approaching the building owners to say, can you do something about this? Like with this sheets of iron blowing off. I'm sure Lawrence isn't the only community that has this problem. So to me, I think 2027 is a long way away for some of these, communities of interest that do have, historic values and so forth. So for me, that would be one that I'd like to see put right at the top of the ladder so that it can give the authority some teeth to actually get something done about the building.
Through you, Madam Chair, look, I'll be guided by your advice in that regard, and if that's what you would prefer to do, we'll look at scheduling that earlier.
I think if you went back to the community board minutes, like the last meeting and a few meetings prior, it's all in the minutes that it was going to be brought back to council. Because under the current policy, they can't do a lot. They brought in one about 3 years ago, but it doesn't quite have the teeth to really get things moving.
Councillor Whelan.
I don't know that policies really actually give teeth to enforcement action in matters like this. It's more perhaps a bylaw, where actually there's probably something in the Building Act that deals with issues like that, which enables the council to take action on matters like that. So that might be where we have to look at to get some action in the community, whereas the policy, even if it's...
Sorry, Madam Chair, but you do actually need policy to create teeth. It's like anything with health and safety. If you've got a policy, there's your best practice guidelines, that creates the bylaw.
So it may be that we need to
need the policy
look at the policy, which we might
bylaw.
identify through doing updating the policy. We still need a bylaw, perhaps. So that might be one way of looking at it.
excuse me. Yes, when you go into these policies, it opens up the landscape. Councillor Von Wheeler was definitely correct. The policy provides guidance as to how the council approaches things, but there are other means by which things are delivered. They might be operational decisions, but when it comes to teeth, it might be a bylaw, it might be legislation. And the policies interact with those things.
Okay. Councillor Finch.
Thank you. On page 47, policy on early retirement of Benha and Tokuiti sewage loan rates. Is that the ratepayers?
It's repayment.
It's repayment.
So through you, Madam Chair, I might think, Karen, can you talk to this?
Through you, Madam Chair, that policy was about 13 years ago. We had to upgrade the Benha and Tokuiti sewage, and so we gave people the option, as we do every year, we give them the option of paying on their rates or paying a lump sum, and this policy gives them the ability to pay the lump sum off at any other time.
Right, at any
It's
other time.
probably not that useful a policy anyway, because we write to them once a year and say, would you like to do this before we set the rates?
Yeah. Okay, that explains it, thank you. Have there been many pay off the lump sum?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, there has. There's been quite a few, and especially when properties change hands, because the owners don't want to take on the debt, so they'll encourage that as part of the settlement. Yeah, so it has.
Super.
Any further questions? Okay, so the motion's here. For number 2, that we note and provide feedback. Is there anything we actually want monitored there as far as recommendation 2? Do you want the policy brought forward? What was it? Policy?
Well, I need to, Peter's already taken it on board though.
I know, but if you put it in, it's basically asking you to monitor it here if you want it brought forward.
That'll be lovely. Thank you.
That dangerous end in Senate, so, yeah. So we actually need some recommendations. Perhaps I'll take the first one, that we received the report, Mika Dogan, Councillor Fouts. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Okay, so now we need to look for a recommendation here. So we're recommending that the dangerous and incendiary building one be brought forward. Is that the only one? Only. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Martin, seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Volwheeler.
Do you need a date?
Just
ask it to be brought forward to 20.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, would your motion be that the Corporate and Policy Committee notes and provides feedback on the proposed work plan and priorities, as it says there, and requests that
Yeah.
be brought forward?
Be brought forward to 25, to the 25-26 year, which gives a few months.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Perhaps notes the proposed work plan requests.
Got it? Do you want to read it out?
That the Corporate and Policy Committee notes the proposed work plan and requests that the policy on dangerous and unsanitary buildings be brought forward to the 25-26 year.
Okay, so we had a mover and a seconder for that. Martin Wheeler. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now, item 4. Management accounts tray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, as we decided at the risk assurance meeting last time, we're not going to bring the boys in to spend all day in here. We've sent them out to graft and garden. So David and I will tackle any questions on this one. And it's very similar to what if you were at risk and insurance this morning, what you would have seen, except it stops at a point, whereas the one this morning had the cash flowing in it. And I think the main points to come out of the one this morning were the timing of the rates and the rates strike and when that happens. That's only quarterly, whereas our budget's been divided by 12 here. And that we have much increased depreciation this year due to a massive uplift in our roading review values at the end of June 24. And other than that, I will take any questions unless David has something to add.
Mayor Cadogan.
Page 49, Sharon, you know, the unders and overs, it's under grants. Second one down. It's got just, if you add them all up, it's just over $1 million of addition. So what do we do with that? You know, like we've got $1 million of costs, it is day-to-day operational. So therefore, does it roll forward because we weren't expecting? I'm back to that one again. Does it go on the rates? I don't think we can borrow for it. I don't know. What do we do with it?
Through you, Madam Chair, last year we did borrow for a deficit. That was a decision that you guys made when we looked at our surplus and deficit for the year. We did end up borrowing for the waters part of that because we were planning on passing that on. But this one in particular, the grants and contributions and the other operating expenditure, they need each other off to some degree. Some of the costs, like the money we paid out for the development and stuff, it's the budget and the actuals aren't lined up. We're working on trying to remap that because the two systems are different. So some of that will need off. Some of them it's costs where we have increased the budget, like the insurance, that went walloping up. And so we realise that it's now increased. So going forward, that shouldn't be a problem unless it goes robbeting up again and stuff. But
let's say, because, you know, there was 43 million before and we could account for 7 of it. There is slippage quite a lot of times of every time over and over. And I know why we're doing it in this environment. But there's got to be a point where if we're going quite close to our pencil level and we continue with it, that we're going to have to make some hard choices. And I'm just asking, right now for this one, what are we going to do? Borrow it or rate it?
Through you, Madam Chair, as we looked at this morning, we're actually planning on recouping some of this going forward. Actually, everybody's putting in these incredible efforts to save money and not do things. And we with the cash flow reporting we had at the, earlier this morning, it actually showed that we might be actually under what we thought. We've been really conservative about getting there. So, and it is a moving target, but if this did have to go on rates, it wouldn't be for next year though. It would be the year after because we're setting next year's rates now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just something I think we have to be conscious of.
Yeah, we're very conscious of it, most especially this year.
Yep.
Any further questions for Sharon? Is the motion there to receive the report? Someone prepared to move?
Yep.
Dogan, seconder. Councillor Volweiler. Put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Investment portfolio update report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Greg has put this together, an update on up to the end of February, and unfortunately we took a loss in February, which is pulling us back to a cumulative return of 4.87%. And with some things that have been happening around us recently, we might not be having the best month for March either. So I think I just would like to point out that year to date, our return is sitting at 1.2 million. However, we need to remember that 800,000 of that comes out to go against our rates. So currently we're sitting at about 440,000, but it all depends on what happens in March. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that.
So my question being, if we get below the 440,000, so below the 800,000, which we've committed to raise, where does that come from?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was a decision made by council way back when they decided on the 800,000, and it has to come out of the equity. That was the decision that was made.
Yep.
That no matter what, because that 800,000 is already committed because the rates are struck for the year, so it has to.
Yeah, I had that feeling, but I just wanted to get that. Councillor Migatamney.
No, the rates were already struck. for the following year.
Yeah.
800's locked in.
800's locked in.
It's always locked in then, effectively.
Yes.
So
Three
should
minutes.
that actually be up for discussion then?
Through you, Madam Chair, that can be up for discussion anytime you do the annual plan or long-term plan. You can, and it has been up for discussion before, but the effect of taking that out on your rates increase is like double because it's quite cumulative. Yeah, because you take it out, it almost adds on twice. But
Just coming from the point that say you had a real bad year and you were minus 7%, and then you whack another 800, you could drop 2 million in equity, and then you whack another 800,000 there.
Yeah. We had one bad year, not quite that bad, but it was up there.
But through you, Madam Chair, you also had a blinder of a year where you made 21-point-something%. So, and they did say right at the very beginning that it's quite cyclical and you've got to expect to hit one in every, was it 7 years?
Yeah,
10
that's
years?
7 years.
7 years. But I think we just managed to span two. So we had two smaller hits instead of the one big one.
Yeah, I probably get that, but yeah, it's just whether you draw down equity every time, that's all. Yeah. Like, I'm thinking, yeah. So.
Trump.
I just think I just highlighted because I just thought it was something that you probably needed to be aware of, but
Yeah, well, what is interesting too is I'm just studying the different funds, and the Nico fund is still a very good one. I'm just researching them. I think they were fourth ranked out of about 40 fund providers. So over several years, the council's still got their money very well invested.
And through you, Madam Chair, what I quite like about their quarterly reports, I don't know how much time you put into reading them because they're a little dry, to be fair, but it does have a really nice benchmarking section in it where it benchmarks them against everybody else. And you can see sometimes they do worse, but more often than not, they do better in every category. So that's quite good to see as well, because you might still be taking a hit, but someone else is taking a worse hit. I think it's quite comforting to know.
Yeah, I've been looking outside of their own information because you're always going to talk yourself up. But they still rate very high.
That's not actually done by them. That's done by Melvin Jessup Weaver.
No, I went again.
Someone else,
yeah.
any more questions for Sharon? No, we've got a recommendation there on page 51. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Payne, second Councillor Herbert. Put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. The Development Properties Update Report.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll tackle this one as well. I can tell you, you'll be pleased to know that since this was written, we've had titles issued for the Rosebank Terrace subdivision. So we can start proceeding with finalising the 4 sections we have sold. What else was to note? That's the Kai house and land packages that we currently have 2 on the go, and I thought that was worth noting, and one's almost finished, one's just started, and we still own 2 sections there to complete 2 more houses. So they've been really successful. And I think that was all I wanted to actually point out.
Question, if I may. How many more are possible in Kaitangata?
Through you, Madam Chair, with the land we currently own, just the 2 that are not quite finished and the 2 that we have sections for without purchasing more.
Right, yeah.
Any further questions for Sharon? Okay,
So just further to that, so has there been quite a few inquiries that would be worth our looking at purchasing more land?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not too sure about that because that normally comes, Sonia might know more, from the Kai Housing Trust.
Yeah.
They normally sort of settle that, line us all up.
Yeah.
I went round there yesterday with Sir Ashley, and it's every road, 1, 2, 3, wow, it is transforming the town. It was a long time there where you drove up and down the streets in search of a new house, but now they're everywhere, and it's so exciting to see a town pick itself up and scruff of the neck. So I don't know, go for a drive around Kai, see whether you think it's worth it, because it's transformation.
Okay, no more questions. Who's got a question?
Just a question. It's probably got nothing to do with this committee, but looking at the houses that have been built in like St Catherine Street, has that had the dust suppression?
No, but it's scheduled
yet.
for this financial year.
Yeah, hasn't been done yet, though.
No.
Okay, no more questions? Right, there's a recommendation there, someone who keeps move. Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Powers. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. The corporate finance team report. Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to take this mostly as read, but just sort of ask for, there's a datascape update in there, which if you're at risk and assurance this morning, you would have heard some more talk about that, so we won't talk too much about it. And I'd just like to get some feedback on how the fees reimbursement and pools and things like that are being reported in this report compared to how they used to be, and is that useful? See it like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
And
probably,
I guess, sorry.
yeah, probably a comment from me. I thought the reimbursement of fees and charges, the way it is really good. We actually used to have a carried forward figure that we would always know how much was there, and I kind of think that is useful, because when you see the figures there, I mean, that's something that will obviously have to be addressed through the new policy that Peter's going to come to us with. But basically, we go through and you approve fees and charges, but you've got no idea where your budget's at.
And I think through you, Madam Chair, it's interesting to note that if you pull out the ones that aren't actually reimbursement for fees and charges, the ones that are like the housing and the Lawrence Chinese camp, that currently to date you've spent $14,097 and your budget's $15,000. So without those other things in there, it's still looking okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Any other questions for Sharon? Councillor Volwell.
Just a question on that page 64, that very last one, Belclutha Golf Club. They're just for water charges. I query why we were reimbursing for water charges.
Through you, Madam Chair, that was a decision made at a council meeting to do that for 3 years. It was a minuted decision. Do you know why, John?
Yeah, it was when we introduced significant uplift in our water meter rates, and they approached council, and council said we will consider that through our fees and charges to the limit that's in the fees and charges, because they're a not-for-profit.
Okay, thank you.
Through it out, I think it was through a long-term plan or annual plan process.
3 years.
Councillor Kennedy.
The property rent reimbursement, what's that one?
Yeah,
In the
through
middle.
you, Madam Chair, that is for if there's organisations that rent property off us, they actually rent it, they can apply, and we do have them, and they always come in at the end of the year. I think last year they applied for about 6,500 out of their budget.
They have to pay it fully
Yeah,
before
they
they
have to
can get it
pay
reimbursed.
us rent to get it reimbursed.
Red Cross is one, isn't it?
Yeah, Red Cross,
Scouts,
they've got to
there's
pay.
a few of them that have always been on the list.
Oh, okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think from when that was brought in, it was probably more to reflect that there was actually they were on council land, and then council gives them a reimbursement back, so it's a reflection of the value of the land they're occupying, rather than just not charging them a rental.
Any more questions to this report? Okay, we've got a motion there to receive the report. Is somebody prepared to move? Councillor Volwell, Councillor Kennedy. Put to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you.